I'm Lisa Reed, and welcome to 100 Ways to Filipino, a storytelling project and a time capsule, but mostly a love letter to the Filipino American diaspora. We're all navigating what it means to be Filipino in places far from the motherland. 100 Ways is for the folks living in between, not feeling Filipino or American. 100 Ways is for the folks trying to bridge the chasm of our culture with a hyphen. And 100 Ways is for the folks searching for the stories we were never told or taught at home or school, because there's no single way to Filipino. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Lotti Grae. Welcome, Lotti.
Hi, Lisa.
Oh my God, finally! After all the
Finally.
DMs, after 1 year, I have to thank God for Gigi Cueva for posting your music on Instagram, because I never would have found you.
She's amazing.
She's like the best. And it's so funny, like she had posted something, I don't know if it was a conversation with you. Honestly, it's been like a year. I don't even remember how or what she posted, but I just remember being introduced to your music and I was like, holy shit. Because what struck me about you and your music was that there is a timeless quality about your music and your voice.
Lisa.
And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but that was the thing that hit me first. And the other thing that hit me is that, maybe this is an unpopular opinion, I don't really care, but your music just didn't sound, again, while it was familiar, it didn't sound like a lot of the manufactured artists that are dominating our airwaves and TikTok. So I don't care. I said it.
That's
so
a way.
I appreciate you so much, but I think I'm going to shut up now, because if not, I'll go on forever. This is a discussion about identity and the ways we Filipino. And so I guess the first question I have for you, Lotti, and this goes to the heart of your identity. Who are you? Who the heck are you, Lotti?
So difficult. I've been playing around with, Filipina-born artist residing in Los Angeles, but then somehow that doesn't quite, is it like Pinay in America?
Mm-hmm.
I'm me. I born in the Philippines. I immigrated to the States when I was 17. And this whole time, like growing up, my parents left to chase that American dream. Right. I was 4. My younger brother was 2. In their worlds, in their minds. And now that I'm growing up and I went back to the Philippines, I could kind of see what they meant by like, there was no opportunities there. I had to go and leave and find work elsewhere. And so there's like struggles with that. But thank God for my grandma. I call her my mama. Mama Puds.
Mama Puts, what is her real name or her original name?
Pudenciana Ragasaho.
Oh my gosh, I know. All these names. No, it's funny. So my cousin used to call my Lola, so funny and so wrong on so many levels. But I thought you said puts as in like pute, right? And for those of you that aren't, Tagalog speaking, pute means white, right? Itim means black. But he referred to my Lola because she raised him, because his mother was living here in the US when he was, from the time he was very young. She came here to work. So my grandmother raised him, but he referred to her as like Lola Puti. Where in the Philippines were you?
So I was born in Mindanao.
Okay.
But then there were all kinds of wars happening when I was growing up. And then when my parents left for America, they were kind of like, okay, let's get you out of there and into somewhere safer.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like being Filipino, it's like as long as there is some sort of family elsewhere, we can probably go there. So my Tito Ayan, he's also passed now too. But I grew up Mormon, Lisa.
Okay.
So in the Philippines and being Mormon, and my Tito Ian went to a mission. Mormon mission is 2 years of your life dedicated to spread the word. You usually travel outside of your normal where you grew up. So he was sent to the Visayas region, to Bacolod. Have you heard of Bacolod?
Of course. Yeah.
Yes.
Never been. Yeah.
Yes. And then there, after his mission, he was like, I found my wife there. I'm going to live in Bacolod. And then so 4-year-old me and my grandma and my 2-year-old brother just like took a big ship, packed all of our belongings. I remember having my little bicycle that had a tandem for my little brother.
Uh-huh.
And we were in that ship. And I grew up in Bacolod City.
Okay. And this was when you were 4 years old, you said?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What a vivid memory. I mean, like, I know that kids at that age, they do, like, you start having your memories at around like 2.5 is when they start to form. But like 4-year-old memories are fairly crystal clear.
Yeah. That's like forever.
You may not understand what you're remembering, but you know that you can draw back on things that take you back to when you were four. Another question for you about your identity. Lottie, is that your real name?
My real name is Veali Saldran.
Okay. And so, how did you get from Bailey to Lottie? What was that journey? And when did this happen? Like, was this, did you decide when you were 6? Did you decide when you were like
No.
26? Like, when did you become Lottie?
So, always had music in my mind, in my life, in my spirit. I started releasing music just under my real name, really. But like being in the States, like, people in the Philippines called me Ve because it's very syllabic, Veyali.
Bailey.
Um, or like my nickname is Bing. But here in the States, when they see my name spelt like that, they read it as Vili. And I hate that sound and I hate explaining it, but I didn't know what else to call myself. So sure, let's use my name, Vayli. And then 2022 was my breakup season,
Hmm.
second breakup after family breakup. And I feel like when you're in that zone of maybe there's a crack and you're just sensitive to signs and ideas, and I had been searching and I get a text from my friend, just checking in. How are you doing? And because I speak another language, I have my autotype off. So I was trying to say, I'm giving myself lots of grace.
Hmm.
I kept typing Lotti Grae, Lotti Grae, Lotti Grae. And I was like, okay, I can see this.
That's
I know
fascinating.
I know exactly what this is. And I was like, okay, hold on. Let me try it on. Because also at that time, I had all this music that didn't feel right for Bailey. Like, it was like, can we put this elsewhere? And so that came along. And then slowly and very shyly, I would whisper to friends, like, hey, I think I'm going to change my artist name. I feel very good about this. And it became shortened to just Lottie. Finally, I get the courage and confidence to look up what Lottie means. German etymology, the free, free woman, free man, little warrior.
That's crazy.
So I took it.
It's a sign. Yeah, absolutely. How do you not, you've got to take that gift and like just own it. Before I ask my next question, there's one thought that I don't want to lose. You mentioned that you went through your second breakup season from family and then your personal one. And this isn't so much about getting into the breakups per se, but one thing occurred to me when you said that so many of us are defined by our breakups. I kind of love that you found a way to redefine what that breakup could actually mean for you so that it doesn't diminish you. It actually propelled you in a very different direction that it sounds like was meant to be for you.
Yeah, it was like all these like preconceived, like who I am, who I thought I was, and maybe who I was held as. And then you hear that little voice in yourself, and then you follow it, which I think
Mhm.
is my intuition. And all of that is false. And the truth is, you become who you want to become, and you listen to that true voice or true self.
Way to come back to that thought. And I'm hoping to God I don't go down the wormhole and forget. So let's come back to Lottie at age 17 coming here to the US. Did you come here by yourself?
Thank God I had my brother with me.
Okay, but it was the two of you. But you guys were, but you were the one kind of in charge. You said he's 2 years, 2 years younger, right? So
I was the
17 and
ate.
15. Yeah. So you're totally the, if you were to describe yourself at that time when you're coming over here, right? Because 17 is such an important age. Like, I don't care like where you grew up. It's a crazy age because you are like teetering on the edge of adulthood, right? Maybe you've left your childhood behind, but there's still a piece of you that if you wanted to grasp the child side of you, you could at that age, right? So who
Exactly.
were you at 17?
I think I was 17. I finished high school. Beautiful, formative memories and years of my life. And right, like my parents have been like, okay, you better be practicing your English because your dad is over there and your mom is over there. You're going to get there. And sure, they said that, but in my mind, I'm like, whatever. I'm going to go to this college, Silliman University,
Hmm.
do this and that. And then I graduated high school and I couldn't believe how fast it was. They were like, oh, yeah, he's got his blue passport now, my dad. And I've petitioned you guys. You guys are coming next week. I didn't
Oh,
even get to say goodbye to my high school friends.
oh, wow.
Like the week that I moved here, they were like, hey, how's it going? Haven't heard from you. Where are you going for college? And I didn't know what to say. I'm kind of just like in this, like, I don't know who I am, who I'm going to become here. I don't know anybody. Thank God I have my brother. My dad, I've never lived with him. He's been a separate, and I see him just like when I was 4, 6, 8 growing up, anytime a plane passed by, we would like say hello to our parents. And
Right.
that was kind of the relationship. And of course, like Magic Jack and these long distance calls
Of course.
where it's like, my brother wants to talk to you. There was no relationship.
Right. Right.
But I was just ready to assimilate. I was just ready to like figure it out and like try to like get on with my life. And through that, I think I was like skip through different parts of like growing up. Like
Mm.
so I like the music part was always part of me. I My dad was like, "Hey, I know you love music." Like high school, I threw like this whole musical, including like the first graders all the way to the senior years, and
Oh,
it was
wow.
like, I loved organizing, I loved putting up things, and then I'm here, and then I don't know anybody. A lot of like kind of broken family shit. Like he was in Chicago, but we were dropped off in Las Vegas to like live with our aunt that became very toxic, where me and
Hmm.
my brother ended up like packing our bags and leaving in the night and calling like a new friend that we met at the ping pong club to like come get us.
Oh my gosh.
Like I think it was great that they worked on this dream for their whole lives, but it was like the last parts of caring and thoughtfulness about your kids and where they're going and like the nourishing it that maybe fell short. Yeah, and I'm glad I had my brother and that we are turning out okay after all of these things.
Yeah. I mean, so your dad was in Chicago. Where was your mom? Was she also in Chicago?
She was at that time. So my dad was ballsy enough that he got a driver's license because he was able to drive. I
Yeah.
think with that he got social security, so he was working on his way. My mom was a little too scared that she kind of was like TNT.
Okay. Got it.
So when I was, I think, 13, she came back to the Philippines. She was tired of hiding out
Hmm.
here and she wasn't able to come back for until after 10 years.
Okay. Okay.
So separated.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you think back to that time, and I mean, kudos to you for having the mental like wherewithal to but I guess it sounds like you and your brother always had each other's backs from the time that you were young to, I would hope now. And that's probably why he had the implicit trust in you. So that when you said, we're going to get the fuck out of here, like he was like, okay, we're going to go. I mean, that's a leap of faith. And when you think about leaps of faith, and I have to wonder if this is true, because again, like I haven't met you before, we haven't spoken about any of this. All I know about you is through your music, and we'll get to your music in a second. And from the few interviews, I did listen to a little bit of the Yellow Chair pod, a little bit. So you come here, you get acclimated, you try to assimilate into culture, right? What kind of leaps of faith do you think you had to do for yourself to just survive? Isn't the right word, but maybe it is the right word, like survive for you at that point in time?
Yeah.
Because Filipino culture is very rarely about like you, the individual. Like, what did you do for you to get to where you are now from that point on?
I feel like it started with the whole English thing.
Hmm.
All Filipinos speak English, but I didn't grow up like practicing my English. It was not until I got here that I was like, okay, you are smart enough. You are smart enough. You can figure this out. And honestly, my dad, it was like, I can't support you or anything like that. You have to go to nursing school.
Hmm.
And I did that so quick. Like I was done with my license when I was 20.
Oh, wow. You flew
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah. So I have like a weird relationship with it cuz in the same way that it's taking away from my artistry and like my time making music, it's also make allowing me currently to live and not be, like scraping by. I'm able to fund my music. I'm able to make some merch and make a little money. I'm
Wait, are you
able to.
still you're still a nurse today?
Yes.
I didn't
Yes.
know that. Okay, okay.
So I'm not full time or part time. It's like per diem
Yeah.
nursing.
Yeah.
And I started that journey being an ER nurse, and that was like too frying for my nerves.
Mhm.
Imagine being 20 and you're just like, what am I doing here?
Right, right. It's intense.
Overnight, it's too intense. I mean, nursing in general is a lot of work and like hard work, and it's a noble job, but my God, I can't hang out in the ER.
It's a lot, yeah.
I work now at a surgery center, removed from the intensity, and I'm your nurse before your colonoscopy or after it.
Mhm. That's too
Much,
funny.
yeah, much chiller, but yeah, I'm working on getting out of there. But I think that was the first step of me like reclaiming my freedom or some sort of let me have a choice here.
So it's interesting. So you kind of have this dual life where you have the practical reality of what you need to do to kind of just live, right? And get, take care of your expenses and just live. But then you have what you believe is, I think, your life, which is your music. It's that which gives you
Yeah.
life. And it's so rich. I mean, how do you think the duality of having these two states of you, right, that have to coexist together, right? How has this impacted your creativity from the process to like your output? Like how has it been informed or shaped by this like yeah, the duality of it all?
Yeah, I've learned to appreciate my creative time because before, sure, I was creative or like had space to create all the time. But then I also didn't feel creative because my resources were low. Like I
Mm,
was just kind of, I can't create. What I've learned from the experience is that I can't create from a place of lack.
yeah.
I was like, I quit my job. It was the same job, this colonoscopy job. I quit it. I was like, I'll figure it out. And I was figuring it out. But yeah, it was not the vibe for me. Now that I work like 2 or 3 days in the week, I get to, it's like Lottie is my artistry, is my life. And
Hmm.
Bailey is the worker, the financer. Just work your other job and put everything that you make, sure, rent and like food, but then also give it back all to Lottie. So it's like I'm my own like mama and also baby.
You're like, yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. But I feel like unless you're funded by your parents, right? Or, and you have this trust fund, that is kind of life in your 20s and early 30s. That's just kind of, it is just is, right?
Yeah,
And I think and I don't know that it's necessarily unique to any type of job or another. I think it just kind of
it
is.
is.
And I think, unlike most people, people have things that they like to do, they have their hobbies. But I think most people don't take the time to actually create or cultivate something in the way that you did with your music, right? Because again, like it is a second full-time job.
I know.
So, well,
I
because I
know.
remember like when I was doing Dear Floor and working my corporate job, people were always like, Dear Floor is your side hustle. And I would have to correct them. Anytime you spend more than 10 hours a day on something, it's not a side hustle. It is a second job,
Thank you, Lisa.
right?
Exactly.
And they're like, "What do you there's only 24 hours in a day." And it said, "Yeah, I don't sleep." It's just the reality.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah. I get so offended by that.
it's because it's not a
Side
side
hustle.
hustle. Yeah. It's like not a side hustle. If you saw what I was doing, this is not a fucking side hustle. I remember when I was working in agencies, people would take a second job during Christmas holidays, like they would go work at like a retail store because one, discount on clothing. When I started working, you were only making like 20 some thousand a year. And so a lot of people, either worked significant overtime, which is what I did, or they would like go pick up a job during the holiday season working at like Banana Republic, right? That's kind of a side hustle,
That's a
right?
side hustle.
That's a side
That's just for
hustle. That's
money.
it is just for money. It's not permanent. Like this is something that you're doing because you love it and because this is maybe not your end game, but pretty damn close to
Yeah, I
it, at
want to
least at
build
this point in
this.
time.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So, I think I want to talk a little bit about your music, right? And so I think I said at the beginning there's something about your voice when I heard it and your music, not just your voice, but your music, the way, your influences, and I want to hear more about them, but there is something that is very modern. But then I also hear something that takes me back to like driving around in my car like during the 90s. Or it'll take me back to like, rave era like vocalists. But then I'll hear something that reminds me of like kind of in the way that Amy Winehouse's voice like has that like jazzy, smoky quality to it. It's soft, but it's also really powerful at the same time. I was talking to Kevin Powell. He's at Kev Powell on Instagram. And I had pulled a track of yours for an Instagram story that I had done. And he was just like, that track, I have it on constant rotation. It was your track Sino.
Oh
And he was just
yes.
like, I cannot stop listening to it. And there is something about your music that has that quality. So I want to know, like, you're a little girl growing up in Bacolod, right? You didn't get here until you were 17. I know that there's a lot of musical influences in the Philippines, but I want to know, like, what were your musical influences growing up?
Growing up, a lot of Filipino folk songs.
Right.
I grew up singing. I grew up singing on stage. Somebody figured out she can sing, put her on stage. Here's your mic. Like every August is like Wanang Wika, celebrating Filipino History Month, and
Hmm.
every August I'm there. I also grew up, as I said, like in the Mormon church, so choir was a big thing. They
Right.
also figured out I can do solos. So like soul and like music that where you can feel is how I grew up, I think, or like the feeling of music. I'm not like going to Mormon church anymore, but what I got from that is that yeah, there is God in music and there is God in community. And I think yeah, I think it's that soul when you are yearning for answers that I
Hmm.
love the most about music and growing up. And then also like jeepney hits from Karen Carpenter, like ABBA and Guns N' Roses, and
Yeah.
classic rock bands and OPM too. Yeah, that's what I've been listening to growing up.
It's funny, as a Filipino who grew up in the US, my exposure to opium is very limited. And it's like when I think back to what my parents used to listen to, there was an element in your voice. If you were singing those old songs from the Philippines from the 50s and 60s, like you could just as easily transition from that to like singing a track on like a techno track. Like it's just
Mm.
it's wild. It's absolutely wild to me. So if those are your influences, and so it sounds like through the church and the choir you had some formal training in how to sing, right? But
Ish.
it's more like choral training, right? But did you have any formal like vocal or singing training?
For those like singing contests, I would get like intensives with my vocal coach, Miss Shirley. She's still doing it in the
Oh, nice.
Philippines. I
Oh my
know.
god.
And then I would do these like kundiman Filipino folk songs,
Yep.
big gowns, and like you're standing like this, big hair. So that's where I learned to kind of play with my head voice a little
Uh-huh.
bit. I never won those things. I was always a third placer, and that is in here, but I'm in my own journey.
But there's a lot. You and I both know there's a lot of weirdness that goes into the judging of those competitions
I
anyway.
know.
So we know that you were number one. So it's
Thank
just
you,
like,
Lisa.
whatever. We know that you were number one. Doesn't matter. It's so funny. Like, why do you think the Philippines over indexes on having such great singers? Because there isn't a lot of formal training, right?
Yeah.
Most people don't learn, but then like you'll see those TikTok videos of some guy sitting with his like knee up on the chair and he gets the microphone and then all of a sudden he's like busting out Celine Dion. He's like singing like, My Heart Will Go On, and it's like he is hitting all the notes. Like why do you think we over index on having such great singers in this country?
I think it's our way of expression. We're very sweet people, but I think the Filipino people are also very repressed in
Mhm.
many different ways. And I think singing is the sweetest way to let that out. Sometimes it might not be writing your own originals or whatever, but singing has been there a long time ago. And I think as Filipinos, we open our mouths and it comes
Mhm.
out, that pain becoming into expression.
No, but it's crazy though, because like I don't care how you were trained, but to like belt like that and have the sound just like I'm like, where the hell does that come from? That's insane. That's insane.
Yeah,
I was thinking, so like obviously when you grow up in the Philippines, you're always surrounded by Filipinos, right? But now here in the US, like when you were 17, were you surrounded, like do you think most of the friends you made in your early period here in the US were they mostly Filipinos, or were they not?
absolutely.
They're mostly Filipinos because you were in
Yeah.
Vegas, right?
I was in Vegas for like just like 3 months. So really, it was
Okay.
just me and my brother. He found a ping pong club, and then it was time to go to Chicago. I
Uh-huh.
went to community college, and the
Right.
Filipino club was my hangout spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then back in LA, so it was it from how long were you in Chicago?
About 5 years, 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then from Chicago, you went to LA?
Yeah. Been here
What
for five
inspired you
years.
to go to LA from Chicago?
So remember that nursing thing? I
Yeah,
hated it so much. I would cry before my shifts. And that just like got me digging. Like, let me remember what gave me so much joy. Cause I feel like when I immigrated, there was like a block in my spirit, in my like who I am. And then that nurse, like I was like, I cannot do this, not even for another 2 years in my mind that time. So let me figure out what I wanted to do. And then I remembered I love being on stage. I love singing. I would like write these little songs that nobody has heard, but
right.
just like little things. And I was like, I would love to do that again. And I just like was real with myself and understood, okay, this is what I need to do. And like during those nights in the ER where there's not a lot of things happening, I would open my laptop and learn how to produce in Logic and like try out like these lyrics that I would write like earlier in the day and try to make like beats or tracks around it at night. That was very formative. And then when I was like gaining more courage, I would go do my open mic
Mhm.
circuit in Chicago. And I really enjoyed it. And I think people resonated with it too. So I did that for like 2 years. I joined like Chicago singing contests. There were
Mhm.
like 100 of us. I made it to the top five. And I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
okay, okay, I need to get out of here and do this for real. So around those that time I was like, I've made a little savings. This is probably enough for me to leap of faith
Yeah.
myself into LA. And yeah, I'm in LA now.
Okay. And now your friends in LA, are they mostly Filipinos or are they mixed?
Lots of Filipinos, lots of Asian Americans, lots
Uh-huh.
of immigrants like me, people of color for sure, and also white and black people, American. Hmm.
So I guess what is your take? You're obviously you have a foot in both worlds because you spent 17 years of your life growing up in the Philippines and now you have what is it about a decade of time like here in the US, maybe a little more, a little
Yeah.
less, right?
Yeah.
How do you think you've changed? I mean, do you still see I guess maybe the first question should be like if you were to say like who you are, do you consider yourself to be still Filipino? Do you see yourself being Filipino American? Like what is your outlook?
I know. I think I'm saying Filipino American.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I've been here 10 years and then I went back to the Philippines and I understand Filipino. I was there too. But I
Yeah,
also miss home in America and
right.
like culture, and it's different, but it's not just American when I'm here.
Yeah.
I also miss that Filipino. It's so far.
It is so far. It is so far. I guess, would be curious to know, because like what are your observations? Do you what from someone who immigrated here, like what are your observations on Filipinos who are born and raised here? How do you feel, they're different? Or how do you feel like their perspective or identity is different from yours? Are there things that, yeah, just what are your observations of Filipinos from the US?
Observations, I wish that I could, and I do want to have like my own series of just like the language thing, because I understand like the immigrant parents that came here didn't want to pass down the language because that was the one they were trying to get rid of.
Yeah.
And then this generation of Filipino Americans crave this connection to the Philippines. And again, it's so far. And language is key, but also it's our kapwa. We kind
Hmm.
of have this innate in all of us, like, oh, you're Filipino? Hell yeah. And then food also is like a major common thing. But yeah, I wish and I want to make that part of my music too, to just like, let's infuse some, Filipino words in there. And I hate it sometimes when I say like, oh, I'm Filipino, and like the next thing is they're telling me the bad words. Like, can I teach you salamat?
That is so true. I never thought about it that way. Like we learn the bad words before we learn the good words that we're supposed to know, like the courtesies, the polite ones. No, that is so true. It's funny. I was talking to a woman who's based in Louisiana. She is half Filipino, half black, grew up in the Philippines, right? And moved here like in her late teens, early 20s. So kind of like you in the same kind of like transition. And she moved here to go to school. But so she runs a Tagalog class. Like, and I think she does one live, and I think she's been doing a few like on Zoom, and she's been doing it for a while here and there because, and she said something really funny when she first got here. She used to measure Filipino-ness, and I'm paraphrasing, right? She didn't say it exactly like this, but she effectively was measuring somebody's Filipino-ness on the basis of whether or not they could speak Tagalog, right?
Yeah.
But then she said, over the course of meeting some of the students and really understanding the reasons why there are so many first generation born here kids that do not understand a lick of Tagalog, she's just like, she said, now I understand. She said, I didn't have that cultural perspective. You don't know this until you know people who are
Yeah.
going through it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Then it
no,
makes sense.
that would be really cool, And if anybody could figure out how to integrate some of that, taking the broken Taglish that we speak and shaping it into like the language, like that could be wild and amazing, right? Because,
Yeah.
and I think it's an interesting flip of the mindset because we think a lot about our parents speaking broken English. What we need to do is turn the mirror the other way around and realize that the Tagalog that we know is busted,
It's
right?
like
It's just like,
crumbled.
it's a very different, like, but and that I think is the interesting like mental shift that we need to kind of play with in order for us to think about. Yeah, okay, so putangina, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Now that we know,
Now say,
let's
how
teach
are
you other
you?
things.
Let's say good morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, so we talked about your musical influences. Who are you listening to right now? Like if we were to open up your Spotify, what's on rotation right now for you?
Well, yesterday I was helping out with the merch and sang a little backup vocals for really my favorite artist, singer, songwriter. Their name is Milk,
Uh-huh.
Milck. She's fantastic. She's also like Asian American, born here, roots in China, and mother tongue is not good at all.
Mhm.
So I was like deeply resonating with that. I feel I've been listening to a lot of like 90s throwbacks, like Desiree, you gotta be bum, you gotta be bum, you gotta be stronger. Like that.
Yep. Oh, that's wild. It's funny. Like I was going back through a lot of the things because I was definitely a child of the late '80s, '90s, right? And
Mhm.
so every now and then I come back to music that I was listening to when I used to drive around in my car, right? And so I dug up before Bjork was a solo act. She had the Sugar Cube, so I was digging up old Sugar Cubes albums, and that's kind of fun. Was listening to Jesus Christ, was listening to old Mazzy Star, weird. And then
Wow.
old they were kind of a one-hit wonder but their album actually I loved it. It was definitely a very girly like poppy album, but they had covered Bizarre Love Triangle by New Order. It's an Australian band called Frente, and I pulled that up and was listening to it because it was just kind of like fun and poppy because remember they like during the 90s they had that whole age of like baby voiced singers. They were all kind of like breathy baby, and it was cute, and it like were, yeah, exactly,
And we're
because you had like
back.
because you had like the Cardigans, you had these guys, you had who? Oh, it's really funny. You
Like
thought
Dido.
yeah, but and it's so funny. I think when you first heard the Cranberries, you thought they were
Hmm.
going to be another breathy baby voice thing, and then they fucking slammed you with Zombie, and you're like, okay, not a baby voice.
Not a baby voice. I understand.
Yes, yeah, no, and so
Cranberries.
like that's fun. So
Mm,
I guess
mm.
how I mean, thinking about like your identity today versus, where you were, right? And where you think you're going. How would you describe like, yeah, how would you describe your state now? Cause like you said, when you were 17, you were still kind of trying to figure out. And so you've had time to figure it out ish, right?
Yeah, ish, right?
So how would you describe, who you are like who you are today?
I have a lot of acceptance now for all these different parts of me, and I'm allowing myself to take up space. And
Mhm.
that's it. It's okay. Take up space. You be yourself in all your ways. Before, it was like, like just trying to fit in,
Yeah.
like be small and yeah.
So I'm going to say something. When you said trying to be small and trying to fit in and assimilate, that feels like very Filipino like
Yeah.
characteristic.
Yeah.
What triggered the shift to saying, you know what, I need to take up space? If your friends from the Philippines and people that knew you back when you were 17 were looking at you now, what do you think they would think of you? What do you think they would make of you?
Maybe they'll use the word liberated.
Mhm.
Because I've been called that before. Like I grew up in a Mormon Filipino
Yeah.
household where you're looked at with like if you're wearing a sleeveless shirt or like an off shoulder, they're like sexy, like in a bad
Yeah.
connotation, even though it's like hot. And so now when I wear that and like sometimes I don't wear my bra, it's just like I'm just being me and what I'm comfortable in and how I feel free in my own skin. Yeah, they'll probably say, yeah, she's liberated, but also maybe craving that too for themselves.
Yeah, but it's so funny. The reason why I started to like, I'm like, say more. No, because like liberated, we know that there's always a double meaning to those things that sound positive, right?
It's like a little shade, but I also want that is the truth, I think, in
Totally.
parentheses.
Totally. Yeah, it's so funny. Let's talk about your music briefly because we talked about, you have a couple of new songs that have come out, right? You've got, was it Bring It? Oh God, why am I forgetting the name of it? I'm so sorry. It's Bring It. Is it Bring It Home? Bring It In?
Bring it.
Bring It Out. Okay. Okay, I got the preposition wrong. So bring it out. Where do your songs come from? Like from what place are you drawing from when you create? Like what inspires you? When do you feel inspired to just create these beautiful songs?
Always when a lot of things is going on like inside, and when I find myself in the studio, it all just like comes out. It
Yeah.
always starts with like a melody and then the gibberish and then they become kind of words. And I honor that, and I thank God that there's that part of me that can do that. But I'm not quite those songwriters who like spend like with the lyrics, and I don't really enjoy that part. I think that takes away the joy for me.
Hmm.
So mine is more just like be on the mic and sing your heart out and be honest, and whatever you're going through, whatever you're thinking about, it'll come out.
It'll come out. It'll come out. Sometimes it's all it takes is right that point of extraction, um, to just
Yeah.
let the gates open,
Let it out.
right?
Yeah. Show up first though.
So it's funny. I'm going to ask you, if you had a dream collab, who would it be with? And I'm asking this. You know that I'm manifesting a collab between you and Drea Baker because I think it could be fantastic. So we will make that happen at some point this year. But
Yeah.
if you could collab with anyone, who would you collab with?
Cleo Soul, Hope Tala.
Hmm.
Charlie XCX would be kind of fun.
That'd be kind of wild.
Yeah.
That would be. Was it her golden? Was it the Grammys performance that had like 5 million people on stage? That was crazy. I didn't know where to look. Just kind of because like there was like Julia Fox doing something crazy, and then someone else is like over here like throwing shit. It was just, yeah, that would be wild.
Yeah.
We'll have to manifest that for you because like, and all of a sudden like there's Lottie.
Oh, there she is.
All right, speed round. If you're being asked to present an award or give a speech somewhere, what is your hype song? Like, what song are you marching out to as they introduce you?
This is my fight song.
You're gonna
I
be
don't know. That
singing
was
your
the,
own. You're
that
gonna be
was the
singing
first
your own.
thing.
So funny. Somebody asked me that question once. Like, and my total hype song is Sly and the Family Stone's "Underdog"
I like that.
because like that one's crazy because you have the horns that are like na 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 na, and like that definitely like it's a little just it's funny. And if you get to know me, I kind of like being
It's
able to like
mischievous.
give it a little bit of the poke, there.
Yeah.
So just like fuck it, like. Yeah, so that one I love. Okay, next question. If there were one song that captures who you are, what song is it?
Yesterday Once More by the Carpenters.
Oh my god, I love the Carpenters.
I
That's a
love
great.
the Carpenters. What a heart
How did
wrenching
you get
story.
oh, so you're that's right. You said it was the Jeepney song. So did you get exposed to the Carpenters because like
Jeepneys. My mom loved the 70s folk songwriter vibes, both
uh-huh.
American and OPM.
Oh my god. I'm trying to remember. No, it's yesterday. Oh no, that is yesterday once more. So I was just like 'cause their songs have different bridges and so like the piece of the song and I'm like, wait, I'm waiting to get to the chorus. I'm like, oh no, wait, same song. Yes, okay.
Exactly.
I was just like, I love
Ah.
this song. Oh no, wait, it's the same song that you're saying. I just forgot the bridge. If there were a character in a book or movie that you relate to, who is it?
Hmm. I want to say Harry Potter.
Why? Why do you think you relate to Harry Potter? What do you love about it?
That feeling of being alone and lonely, and then finding your own tribe, and all together using your own powers to save the world against the Dementor.
All right. And so, like, last question and not a speed round question, but it's a question that we ask everyone that comes on. How do you Filipino?
And the way that I laugh and welcome people in.
All right, Lottie, thank you so much for joining us at 100 Ways to Filipino. It was so refreshing to have a proper conversation with you after just exchanging DMs. Folks, if you want to give Lottie's music a listen, check her out on Spotify and Apple Music. We're going to share the links. Do check her out because her music is amazing. Also, give her a follow on Instagram and TikTok. You can find Lottie. She's at Lottie Forever. So that's LO 4 ever, at Lottie Forever on Instagram and TikTok. And folks, thank you so much for tuning in to 100 Ways to Filipino. If you enjoyed this conversation with Lottie, do stay tuned. Every week, we're going to be bringing you a new individual and a new story where these folks are just going to show us how they Filipino all day, every day. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Are you questioning